listening to the third installment of Stories from the Ground from Voga Coffee with Sum Ngai of Coffee Project New York. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to the final installment of our series on Stories from the Ground, where we talk with great cafes about their experience going through the COVID crisis and lessons that they've learned and advice that they have for us, insights that'll help us all do better and, grow even in the midst of this time. And this series, Stories from the Ground, is brought to you by the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer from Voga Coffee. And the fact is that in order to survive in today's retail environment, we need to be creative, we need to be agile, and the tools that we use need to reflect those things. And the Ground Control Cyclops Brewer is designed to not only maximize the quality of your coffee, but also unlock new levels of creativity and the versatility you need in the day-to-day life of your shop. The SCA award-winning technology allows you to extract more than you thought possible and brew anything from batch brew coffee to tea, cocoa, batched iced lattes, and batch cold brew. In the landscape of specialty retail right now, especially, the Ground Control Brewer gives you the control you need to navigate the changes with ease and excellence. Highly recommend them, so go check them out over at vogacoffee.com. That's VOGA coffee.com. Okay, well, welcome to the last in this series of episodes, Stories from the Ground, brought to you by the Ground Control Brewer from Voga Coffee. All the people, by the way, that we've been interviewing in this series are customers of Ground Control. I want to mention to you that the takeaways from this are available over at vogacoffee.com. For each episode, we have the bio of the guest and the takeaways listed out very conveniently for you. I would really encourage you to head over to vogacoffee.com to download that PDF for each episode so you can get the spec sheets over at vogacoffee.com. In this episode, we're going to be talking with Sum Ngai, who is the co-founder of Coffee Project New York. It was founded in 2015. It has 3 locations, including their recent expansion to Long Island City, which is a facility that has a roastery, a cafe, and an SCA premier training campus. At the campus, Sum and her partner Kaleena teach certified classes to coffee industry professionals seeking to further their education and career opportunities. Sum herself is a certified Q grader and a roasting championship competitor who oversees the company's roasting programs. At the beginning of this company, their goal was to just share their passion with their community, their passion for coffee. And they received a lot of recognition really soon into this project, a testament to their great work. They really are just seeking to elevate the coffee experience at Coffee Project New York and pay tribute to the craftsmanship and profession of the barista. So Coffee Project New York essentially has grown from a 2-person team to a much larger team of professionals specializing in all facets of the industry. And in this conversation with Sum, we're going to hear a little bit about the genesis of Coffee Project New York, and then we're going to dive deep into what happened during the COVID crisis, especially being in New York City, one of the epicenters of this crisis in the United States. This hit businesses in New York so hard, and it's hit us all pretty hard, but in New York it's extreme. And Sum has a lot of great things to share in this episode about care for her employees, her approach to business then and now, and advice to us as coffee professionals going forward. So I hope that you enjoy this. I hope that it's really encouraging and informative. So here now is Sum Ngai of Coffee Project New York. Well, Sum, thank you so much for joining me on Keys to the Shop. Really a pleasure to talk to you. How's your day going?
Thanks for having me, Chris. My day is great. Just finished helping Kaleena coaching a class, and now I'm just hanging out and think about things that we're going to chat about.
Nice. There is a lot to talk about, and you're the epicenter in New York City for all that's going down, and when we're definitely going to dive into that. But I'd love to start getting people a little bit more acquainted with Coffee Project New York and what it does and how it got started. So tell me a little bit about how this project got off the ground and what's the vision for this business?
So Coffee Project New York started in year 2015. Initially, it's just me and Kaleena. We just wanted to run a mom and pop coffee shop in East Village, Manhattan. Vision is also pretty simple. We just want to have a good neighborhood coffee shop where we have people come in to hang out, spend some time, and drink good coffee. But little do we know, now 5 years down the road, we have three locations. We have a coffee roastery, and we have an SCA certified lab in New York City. So things has been pretty wild for us. So far, so good, and we're really enjoying it so far.
That's awesome. So your desire to open a coffee shop initially turned into something much greater. I mean, what what was the draw to start the business in the first place?
So before I get into coffee, I'm actually this really boring 9 to 5 person working behind desk. And I think I got really burned out from my previous job. And I just told Kaleena, hey, maybe I want to start a coffee shop. So it's very straightforward. I was just thinking about doing something together with her that would make it a little project, like it is our project. So I told her to quit a job as well. In 4 months' time, we got coffee project up and running. So it's like our little coffee project doing coffee shop.
Oh, I get it. Yes, yes. And so now that it's much bigger, I mean, was it you obviously had to make a decision along the way to allow it to get bigger. I mean, what was behind saying yes to all of this expansion? I mean, you started with this kind of an open notion of starting a coffee shop and let's see what happens. But then as things expanded, I'm sure you were seeing, oh, there's a lot more here. Like what guides your decisions in choosing how to expand and where to expand?
To start, so like I say, we wanted a mom and pop coffee shop, just like how it is. We were pretty focused on doing this until one day we realized that, oh, we couldn't handle anymore. We need to start hiring people to come in and help us. So once we have people coming in to help us, we trained them and get together, and we grew like a little family. It was really nice. But down the line, initially, because if you only have one coffee shops, you will just only be doing work here. Like if there's no rooms to grow, there's really nothing much to do other than being a barista. So it was a really painful incident that when we first hired and we have like three really nice baristas with us, and all of a sudden we lost all the three of them in the same month. They all move on to jobs and also leaving the city, and we're back to square one. It's I think it hit me that wow, so having a coffee shop dream is great. Kaleena and I are really enjoying it, but at the same time, when we look at this young blood who came in, they all have hopes and they all wanted to do something, and it hits me that we have to provide this pathway somehow for people to enjoy this position at the same time to grow as well. So we started thinking, what are the possibilities that we can do? Definitely the expansion started, and we started having a second shop. So we have the whole hiring process one more time, and this group of people have stayed throughout until now, so which is great. And then we started sending people to different places, and they started becoming like managers in that location, or like lead baristas, or even some move on a little bit to education and production as well. So this is one bigger push for us to actually start the second location. In terms of the lab and also the roastery, once we have a chance to really like talk to them, to talk to the baristas and the team about like why and what do they want to do in coffee, we have heard a lot of different response. Like some would like to march on if they want to do like roaster work, if they want to do like competition or anything else. So we started building our organization within this. Like we have people who want to start learning a little bit more about roasting. We started the roastery education. We built the lab. And then just recently we started a tech department because one of our baristas thinking like, hey, I can utilize some of my skills in electrical engineering or like my previous experience while I was an electrician to help in the coffee community. So our expansion is solely depending on like how and where people would like to go to.
That's really wonderful. So it's really employee driven.
Employee driven, that's correct.
Oh, nice, nice. And so now, all these years later, 5 years later, what does it look like to run Coffee Project New York? What is the, you have a roastery, you have the facility, all that, but what do you have your hands in right now? Like before the interview, we were talking about how you were doing a educational boot camp and you're doing some other stuff like that. Describe what it's like to run this now versus back then.
So different. So my friends or like the people in the coffee community in New York City always laugh at me. They'll be like, "Sam, you're running a coffee empire now." I'm like, I'm trying. I don't know how, but right now I have a team of members who's really good at what they're doing in the front already. They are like the people who's helping me to take care of the cafe, taking care of the customers, and even like some back end office work. So my job right now, I'm thinking is how do I make working in Coffee Project even more opportunity. So last year we actually have two baristas who are very keen in the competing. So we started training them, sponsoring them, and also together to select coffee, roast, and go to the competition together. So this year I want to focus on that again because we have more baristas who are interested in taking up competition. We're also thinking about maybe enhancing our SCA lab with more machines, encouraging more people to take up coffee skills. So for example, the youth program that you just mentioned was actually a 7 weeks coaching program for youth to get job placement. Then these are the people who actually picked coffee as one of their skills that they want to do. So we want to be able to explore more on that option and just training more people who are similar minded. So I'm very much into training and roasting right now instead of doing the front end coffee job.
Wow, so different. And I like how your response is that you're not trying to do that, but it's just evolved into what it is, and it just shows the kind of desire that's out there in the industry for, learning and growing, and that people are just desiring to do more than just be baristas, which is fine to be a barista, but people aspire to continue learning. And so the fact that you're so focused on education now is so appropriate. What is your philosophy in terms of your approach to quality and hospitality? The way that you approach education. What is your philosophy towards the quality of those things?
Quality. So for me, I think in my personal opinion, I think education is really for everyone. So everyone can learn. Someone might take a little bit more time. One might take less, but essentially, we try to meet all the baristas or like people who want to learn about coffee where they're at. We have a standard that we have to follow because we're teaching SCA syllabus, but we want to be able to modify certain things, our teaching style, or even what we would offer according to how accessible resources is for the students. So if they have access to an espresso machine, great, we will be able to provide guidance on that part. But if, let's say, all you have is just a French press at home and you really want to learn about coffee, so I would modify on the syllabus on how to make good coffee or as great just by using a French press. So this is what we have been doing here. Like resources shouldn't be something that is stopping the student from picking up any skills that they are thinking of doing.
So as you've built this business, what would you say your biggest challenge has been in the last 5 years as it's expanded and you've learned more about the industry itself?
So we're in New York City. Coffee shops are just popping every corner like fairly easily. So competition is definitely one thing that we have all been thinking a lot. So it will definitely affect any business if there is a new coffee shop that's around the corner that open up. So how do we juggle and how do we still keep our customers when this happens? So this has been one of the biggest challenge that we all have to deal with being in New York City.
Mm.
Then other than that is everything that I spoke about so far, like staff retention. There's a lot of great people out there who have been working in coffee, and they all come in super passionate about making coffee, being in hospitality. But how do we keep this passion throughout and don't let this person burn out? So this has been the two things in terms of business and retail that we have been struggling a lot since the beginning of how coffee projects started. But we get creative. We think about like how do we encourage people to come back all the time. Obviously, the team is great because the customer service is so good. So people just come back all the time for the product, for the people, for the friendly smells. And retention for staff is definitely talk to them, like see what they want to do, and eventually they will just be part of a team wholeheartedly and want to grow with you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And boy, the competition really is it's it's unparalleled, really. I mean, maybe places like Melbourne and other larger cities, but there was a time back in like 2003 or two, there's only 4 or 5 places, if that. Yeah, and it's really blown up for sure. So those are challenges that you've had establishing this kind of a coffee empire, and now though is something completely different. In the 5 years, there's been challenges that I think a lot of people would really empathize with what you're going through, or they'd sympathize with what you're going through as a business owner, but there's now COVID, and you're in the epicenter of where this all went down. And how did you first see this coming down the pike, and what were your thoughts on this initially? What were kind of the first steps that you were taking as the whispers of this started to happen in New York City?
It feels like so long ago. I honestly, like up to now, I still don't have like a one good word to really describe what has happened to New York City for the past 4 months. It is really crazy, Chris. Because if I remember clearly, the shutdown happened literally in like next day kind of situation. So I remember it was the day where all of a sudden we were like, yesterday it was a good day. Like people still come for coffee, and then the day after, the city is literally empty. Like there's no one at all. So it was very drastic. But when everything happened, the first thought is, how do I keep everyone safe and I don't lose everything that we've built? I want to say we're considered lucky because our lab just started. The SCA lab just started last November. It wasn't at a peak. We're still slowly catching up with work, introducing people to this new business. So at least this part, I don't have to worry too much because I don't have a lot of staff in here, just the coffee shops that I have to worry about. So it was like, first thing first is just tell the baristas to stay home for now. Like we literally told everyone like, hey, I think we're going to shut the store. So our East Village location is closed. We closed the lab. And Kaleena and I lived in Brooklyn. So we kept Brooklyn open for a very short time, like from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we drive. So it is a lot safer. Then we just go on from there. So the first thing that we did right away, like even without thinking much, is just, hey, team, stay home. Don't worry about anything first. We'll figure it out. And then we just juggle and see how do we keep the business afloat during this time. Yeah. But now it's just a day by day thing as well.
How did the staff react to all of it and your customers?
I think there's definitely a lot of uncertainty for the staff. I'm pretty sure it ran through their brain like, oh man, is Coffee Project going to survive this pandemic? Am I going to lose my job? Or how am I going to pay rent the next few bills? But we kept in touch a lot. We assured them that, you know what, this is just going to be temporary. That being said, we're very honest and very transparent about what's going on with the business and with the whole operation. So I think I managed to convey everything that I need to tell the baristas and the team on what's going on. They take it okay. I think they're more worried about like how are we gonna stay afloat, because Kaleena and I are working every day. Like, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we eating well? So baristas have been sending us snacks and food and like making sure that we're taken care of. That was really sweet. Customers, everybody came in and said goodbye. They're leaving town. And we just kept in touch through social media platform with the customers that we know a little bit deeper. But I think so far it was the right move. It is still the right move. In Brooklyn, when we were working, we see a lot more customers. At first, it's like we don't have anyone, but slowly and gradually, when people know that we're open, they would run downstairs and just grab a cup of coffee and go back to their apartment. But I think one thing that hits me hard when the customers were saying something like, are you guys going to close now? Because this is the only normalcy I feel that is still happening to me. Like, it's a ritual. If you are closed now, I don't know where to go for coffee. And I think I really feel like, oh, I am trapped. So they say it in so much sadness that when I think about right now, I still feel the goosebumps. I'm like, it's going to be okay. So all I tell everyone I meet is like, it's going to be okay. Stay home and we're going to get through this together. But it was very powerful. I wish I could just convey this, but it's just so much emotion.
Man, how has this evolved since the initial, how you pivoted to keep the business afloat? But now we're what is it, 4.5 months or so now? So what does it look like now, and what's the difference?
I'm not saying that people are taking this a little bit more like lightly. It is just people are getting used to the new norm of just putting on a mask, going down, grab a coffee, maybe sit outside on the open area a little bit, and then go back to their home to do whatever. I think it's started to sink in that this is the new thing that customers or like people around us are doing. For us, I think we have to start thinking about what are some of the other ways that we can do, because retail business is so bad.
Right.
It is, if I can share numbers, it hit us like 70% at least of whatever that we're doing. Like, we can barely make rent in a day. So I think we switched a little bit to e-commerce. The few months when one of our retail site is closed, when I was roasting more, I just told my team that I have to open up our website right away to sell coffee beans. That's really helpful. So everything is e-commerce right now. And then we start thinking about maybe we can make bigger batches of coffee so that when people really need to do a coffee run, they don't have to just buy a cup or two. They can just buy a whole half gallon. And thanks to Carl from Black and White, who with tips to like how to make like batch brew latte, so that people can actually buy the mega jugs, and that help a lot as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Recently we started doing delivery as a coffee shop. Didn't go well. It didn't go well for us. Either we're not out there enough to tell people that, hey, you can get delivery from us, or like maybe delivery for coffee shop is just because we're very coffee focused. We don't have a lot of food. We're just mainly beans, drinks. So that doesn't work well for us. I think we have to switch to online classes too right now. So basically, most of our retail is down, and we're pushing everything to retail online.
Is that where a bulk of your income is coming from now then, online?
Most of them, because if it's not because of the roastery and also online classes, I think to juggle the two shops right now, it's going to be a big challenge. Most of our baristas are back. We got them back, and then they are working in retail with COVID pay and all that. Yeah, it's really just the e-commerce helping out.
So the e-commerce is helping you out a lot, but what is you've obviously seen some increase in the amount of people coming back into the retail store, and you've been able to hire you said most of your baristas back?
Yeah, actually, most of the baristas are back.
Okay, great. That's awesome. And so when you are operating this way now, it's an adjusted, that new normal of having some modest rush of people come into the cafe. So as strange as that may feel right now, there's got to be a lot of just processing that has to happen as a team in terms of communication and conversations that you have with your staff, and the communicating well with the customers, the certain rules that you have in your space. Like, how do you approach keeping in good communication and keeping updated and others updated on how things are progressing in the shop?
Oh, absolutely, Chris. Communication with the team has been the number one thing that I have focused on since our shutdown of the shop. I want to make them feel. I think it bothers me personally if I don't know how they're doing. So we have our own WhatsApp channel where we hang out, and then we talk about random things, work and off work. And then when once in a while we have our Zoom meeting, we've had like 3 to 4 birthday parties over Zoom to celebrate. It was great to see like how they're faring at home. Everyone is healthy. It gives me the motivation to like, hey, I just have to do a little bit more and plan so that they can come back and work safely. So communicating via online platform is one thing that we use a lot. And other than that, it's just like, when we need to tell them how and when we're starting again, we give them enough time to plan and have, if they have discussion. So we had a one-on-one talk to every single person to find out like, what are you going to do when we reopen? Do you feel comfortable coming back? Some yes, some no. If no, when do you feel comfortable coming back? So these are some of the questions that we asked. We also asked if you're comfortable coming back, what are the shifts that you want to pick? So when we started reopening our location, we reopened Brooklyn first. Some baristas are comfortable taking 2 shifts. Okay, sure, 2 shifts in this location. Some baristas are comfortable taking 3. Okay, 3 shifts in another location. If let's say I don't have enough baristas to pull shifts, we will be closed for that location. So LIC just opened, Brooklyn opened a lot quicker. So these are the things that we want to be really transparent about to the baristas as well. Like, hey, you're not being forced to come back to work only if you feel like doing it. And if you do come back, this is the position for you. We still have 3 baristas right now who's at home still feeling like, hey, I might need to take a little bit more time, which is okay. We're still keeping in touch, and everyone's still feeling okay.
And I assume that, as they feel comfortable and as you have the opportunity with your business, you bring them back. How does that, when you forecast where you want your business to go in terms of your hours and availability of those old job slots, how do you juggle that? I mean, it's got to be just a day-by-day thing. Like there isn't enough room for everybody right now because the business is there. For that's the kind of the perspective from a lot of people. So even if they came but really wanted to come back, would you have a place for them?
So for now, we're still lacking people to come back. So all the coffee shops are opening only half day from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. We still have a lot of availability open right now, but since everyone is only comfortable doing a certain shift, then we should stick with it that way. And some people have moved on to doing different position as well. So before this, I don't have an administrative manager who will help with paperwork and all. But now that with COVID and she's more comfortable working from home, we have promoted her to take up this position. So instead of being a manager in my coffee shop, she has now moved on to being a manager doing administrative work, which she can work from home. So these are we just have to communicate and be as honest as possible with each other, with either the hours, how they're feeling about it, and we try to work something out together.
It sounds like the environment or the culture that you had cultivated over the years of letting the organization grow at the hands of the employees and their skill sets. It sounds like some of this environment is coming in handy now, where there's a more of a freedom to reposition people into job roles where, if there was really tight structure beforehand, and there wasn't really a whole lot of migration or expansion or tapping into what people wanted to do, what your baristas wanted to do, to switch somebody to a position like that might not have gone as well. Do you feel like some of what the seeds that you've sown in terms of an employee-focused organization like that have come in handy right now, especially?
100%, Chris. Not only that the position. If let's say if they choose not to come back at work at all, like they think this is they don't want to come back at all, it is going to hurt the organization a lot. But this team of people that we have right now are people who are willing to come back and want to fight alongside with us. So I am very, very proud of them, and I am really thankful that for them, this is no longer just a job. It is part of them. I hope they feel like that, because everyone that I have right now, it's like a big part of what I'm doing. So I'm really grateful with how they feel about the position. So having them on different positions is great, but to start off with is they are willing to come back. I think this is the number one thing that really touches me.
Yeah, it's awesome. And now that you've got sort of I want to say it's a rhythm necessarily, because, things could change, I suppose. But a lot of people are in a situation where they're trying to forecast as far forward as they possibly can just to be prepared. What is 2021 going to look like? What's the holiday season going to be like? Because that's a huge day for a lot of us. And so I'm curious to know, in those moments, far and few between as they may be for you these days, where you're thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to approach the holidays and the future? What kind of strategic moves are you trying to plan for right now, knowing what you know about the situation, having gone through this for the last few months?
I'm not sure. I think I didn't mention this yet. So real estate rent is really expensive in New York City. So I'm not even looking at the holidays right now. Like, the first thing that I want to do at the moment, and I would encourage everyone else to do it, is to reach out to your landlord and see if there's anything that we can all do together to get by this crisis. So this is number one thing that I'm going to do throughout the end of the year. The second thing that we're thinking to approach the holiday season is we're definitely not getting the foot traffic from tourists or tourism or people visiting during the holiday. Perhaps we can bundle up some classes and coffee gigs together, and then put it online and have people buy, and we can teach people how to make coffee online. That's one thing that we can think possibly that will boost a little bit of e-commerce that we have been working on. But other than that, we really have no plan for the holiday that's coming, other than just making sure that everyone is still staying safe, being responsible consumers.
How has this experience changed the way that you structure your finances in the business, or that you want to structure your finances in the business in the future? Because, a lot of people in food service don't have a whole lot of margin for error. They're, notoriously food service and restaurants especially are like a couple of weeks away from closing, really. And so I wonder, when you look at your books and you think, well, how can we be more resilient? What are some, beyond the online store, as an owner, what are you thinking? Okay, well, Coffee Project 2.0 in terms of operations on the back end looks like this. It should make us more resilient if we do that.
I think you're absolutely right about there's really no rooms for error right now. Every single penny that we waste is going to be really hard for us to bounce back. So we portion out a lot of things for the coming month. For example, if we know that if we look at our numbers and we see, okay, on this particular day, it's going to be a lot busier, so maybe you will need to have more labor. On this particular day, it is not busy, so maybe we can have just one person, or even like just close the day or close half the day. So these are some of the budgeting method that I'm actually doing with labor, because other than rent, the second most expensive thing that will help with our books is the labor costs. Then we make sure that no one wastes anything at all, like things that has a date on it, for example, milk and pastries and all that. We think about the best way on using them, and they are very on point. So I've been starting doing this with my managers. I give them access to a lot of data, and they can plan out their route a week ahead of time. So if we sold out, we will just be sold out. We will rather sell out be sold out than having extra and then waste. So this is our approach right now. Just be very, very controlling all these details and all these specs with the help of like point of sale system, all the data that we can get from the books.
Is that slightly a change? Is that kind of a change or a tightening down to what was already in existence for inventory and tracking?
Definitely. So we're cutting it super, super close. We don't want to be like overloaded with one inventory at all. So I actually did not do all this prior to COVID. We're very flexible in terms of like how the managers want to order things. But ever since COVID, we met up and have a meeting about it, and we are all of us on the same page on how we can not have waste and make the most out of whatever that we have. So sharing inventory is one thing that we are actually doing right now. Let's say if we were to make a food item, so that food item will have ingredients that can be shared with 3 other menu items, so we don't have to like buy a lot more to stock it at the back end. So this is also one thing that we're practicing, and it's working so far. No wastage, don't waste milk, inventory control. It's so far very, very helpful.
That's awesome. That is something, it sounds like something that just will make you a better business in the future anyway. Once you know what I mean? Like once you have this in place, it's not like you're going to go back after, let's say 2021, everything is just totally fine. You're not going to just roll it back and say like, hey, guess what? It's okay to waste now.
I've turned into such a control freak, Chris. It's like every day I'm like, I got to go check my books and see if whatever that we planned for last week makes sense for this week. If it's not, I have to talk to the managers like, hey, next week, please don't do this, and do this. I'm thankful they're not screaming at me for like changing things every day, but I keep telling them, sorry, you'll hear from me every single day just because it's a day by day thing. Eventually we'll all know what's going on and things will go back to normal. But now it's week by week, day by day.
Hey, that's good. I think I view that as a good thing. I feel like this is a touchy subject that doesn't get talked about a lot necessarily, but is still really critical for how we operate as businesses. And that is, in specialty coffee, we have a higher standard for our quality, right? And we talked about that. You're an educational facility. I mean, that is like a huge part of what you do. So is it harder to bring up and keep people accountable still for training standards and quality standards in the midst of a pandemic? Because it feels like, I don't want to say petty, to correct somebody on tamping or something like that. But at the same time, it seems pretty important that we still are upholding the same standards within this time frame, even though we do have a lot more grace for each other.
You are right on that part. So for us, as we in the retail side, the baristas, I don't think so. Anyone are giving a little less when they're servicing or like pulling the shots. They're still dialing in, they're still temping, and still maintaining to that standard. I think this will, like for me, this shouldn't change. Like we can be a little bit more compassionate about like how you're feeling today. If you're not feeling good, if you don't feel like being bar or like doing the front, maybe we can switch role. But if you don't feel comfortable coming to work today, and if it's affecting your skills, then I really think that you should take a break, because motor skills come very naturally. Like if you're always doing it right, and I think it just becomes so automatic. You will not start to attempt something differently the next day. So if we have a new hire that comes in and I realize that, hey, maybe you can temp a little bit here and not that, do some like correcting the posture, I will be very upfront with them to start off with. Like, everyone is feeling a little bit weird. We have to be kind, but if we slack on this, eventually the body's going to learn and it will become something in you. So I think I'm still pretty strict in terms of like barista skills, and the baristas, the team actually know about this. But I think I can, I'll be okay if they're a little bit not as happy sometimes when they're in the front, because it's just crazy times now, Chris. So when that happens, we just sit and talk. I'm like, hey, is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, that's critical, and that's good. I just, even in the midst of this, you're still in New York, and there's still so much competition. Even if competition is all sort of experiencing these steps back in operations, you're all experiencing it together. And so, but the people that are still open are still choices that the customer has to make. So while we're not necessarily focused on like beating the competition and trying to just do right by the people and things we have, it's still important that we get customers to come into our stores on a regular basis, because that's how we stay open. Or, choose your coffee online. So I'm curious what you think about what's coming next, or maybe this is a bit of future work here, predicting the future, I guess. But if you had to guess what was going to be the legacy or the lasting addition to the specialty coffee scene going forward years from now as a result of this, what would you say you're really prepared to just accept as the new normal or the way of operating your business that you think is going to be true for a majority of specialty retail?
To start off, ever since we started Coffee Project, I'm not a big fan of doing like curbside pickup, like calling in to order in advance and delivery. But it is so vital for all of us here in New York City because a lot of people that I spoke to when they own a business, be it coffee shop or not, that their business model has changed from however many percent to a bigger chunk for takeout coffee, and giving them an option to call in ahead of time to place an order or order online and come pick it up later has helped them to survive and boost more sales. So I think this could be the next thing is that people don't mind to have their coffee set on bar for the next 10 minutes before they come pick it up, you know. But I have always don't like this model because I always feel like you want to be able to communicate with, because the whole specialty coffee thing is an experience. Like you walk to the coffee shop, you feel the ambience, you talk to the barista, and then you place your order, have a little conversation, and then you get your coffee. And your coffee will be hot, good temperature, or cold at a perfect iced amount, not diluted. But I think this is change. It's changed a lot. Even when I was working in Brooklyn by myself with Kaleena during the entire COVID session, it was not because of pickup calls. I have to actually promote on Instagram that, hey, you can actually call us to place your order online so that you can just come pick it up and go. So this is one thing that I think is going to happen. Eventually, we're going to all be investing in machines or like boxes to keep food warm, keep the coffee still warm, things like that. I think this is where we're going next.
Well, I feel like specialty coffee people are pretty innovative, and even though a lot of this stuff is new for a lot of people that have been on the fence with something like an online store, they all of a sudden overnight they learned how to do it because they had to, and now they're just like almost still kicking the wheels on this thing. But a year from now or two, you're going to find people like there's a hack here or a hack there, the innovation here, and we can make something that we don't think is special somehow.
That's one lesson that I really learned throughout this whole COVID thing, and how to run a business and how to still stay alive, both business and personally, is really have to be flexible. There's so many things that I really hate doing before, but now I just have to do it. And not only I have to do it, I have to do it so many times, and I have to do it so well. So I'm glad that I finally picked up that flexibility.
This has really been a fascinating conversation, and I'm so happy that you are doing okay right now. And
thanks,
what you've shared is very, very helpful. I wonder, in our last question here, if you would just kind of give your advice to other owners right now from your experiences. What would you tell an owner and operator who's in a similar position that you feel would really be helpful?
Now is the time for all business owner to really, really know the in and out of their business. So back before COVID and all that, you might have a manager to run some errands for you. You might have a lead baristas to do some other things, or HR department. But now, because you have to be able to control a little bit more. So I think as owners, you have to have all these details and data at the back of your head. Be very flexible, like I just said. You have to learn how to do things that you're not comfortable doing. I think these few things, operational, but just don't forget to be kind to everyone, because right now everybody needs a little bit more kindness. So this is what I think it's important for all business owners now. Just keep going.
Yes, indeed. Well said. So how can we stay in touch with you and what's going on over there at Coffee Project New York?
If anyone needs anything or like want to start to chat, or I can be found on Instagram. My Instagram account is at sum, SUM, underscore Coffee Project NY. Or you can also follow us on our the main Instagram page at Coffee Project NY. I'm happy to provide any sorts of resources that I have or direct you to a direction if I don't. Stay in touch, and even if you just need someone to talk to, like just how did you do this right now, I can be reached. Send me an email, that's good too. It's chisum@coffeeprojectny.com. But Instagram is a lot easier for you to find my details. I'm pretty quick in responding. If I don't respond, just keep nudging me. I will definitely get back to you.
Nice. Thank you so much, Sum. I really appreciate you sharing all of this on the show. Really fantastic to have you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Well, at the end of this, I think one of the main takeaways that I have, and there's several takeaways. We have a robust list of takeaways from this interview, again, over at vogacoffee.com, the spec sheets for this episode. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. But I think the emphasis on communication is huge. And it's not just any kind of communication. It's communication that comes from a heart of genuine care for the well-being of the people that work at Coffee Project New York. And that kind of thing, that's cultivated over time. And it's really heartening to see that in this process, it's just a continued steady value, even though there's, you have to make sure that the business is doing well, and there's not a separation between heart and business. It's all sort of like mixed in there. And Sum's care for her employees and consistency in communication has obviously been a very good asset in the midst of this, and continues to be as the crisis continues to unfold across the landscape of specialty retail. So a huge thank you to Sum for joining us on the show and sharing Coffee Project New York's story. It certainly was extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Sum. And again, you all can get the takeaways in the spec sheet over at vogacoffee.com. I would also encourage you to visit Coffee Project New York's website. That's just coffeeprojectnewyork.com. So this ends our series of stories from the ground. And I really do hope that these three cafes, Coffee Project New York, 392 Cafe, and Sum Coffee, that their stories have served to equip you with inspiration and tools to succeed in the midst of what we're currently going through in our industry with the COVID crisis. We can get through this, and not only that, but we can thrive in the midst of that, and even reach deeper connections with what we're doing in coffee and the people that we work with and the people that we serve. That's evident from these conversations. And I thank you for joining us on this journey of stories from the ground. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.